Hi everyone, welcome back to In Her Words. Today we have a special guest who started in the film industry when she was 16 years old and has worked on projects like The Mirror Game, and her latest project called Pretty Problems has won an SXSW Audience Award, and she is an amazing producer. Welcome, Katya.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being with us today at In Her Words. I know it's late that side. I just want to say, Katya, you started pretty early. How did you know that this is what I want to do? At 16 years old, we're just focused on boys and school and whatever else.
I don't know. I always knew that I was a very kind of responsible person and a very organized person, but I was also very creative and really loved to write and tell stories. So I sort of met some people in the film industry, and first of all, when I was young, when I was 8 years old, I met this producer named Shauna Robertson, who produced many famous comedies like Superbad, Pineapple Express, 40-Year-Old Virgin. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And I was so inspired by her when I was a kid, and I was like, wow, I want to be a producer just like her. And then I kind of forgot about it because that's like how kids are, very short attention spans. And then when I became a little bit older and was starting to think about college and sort of what am I going to major in, what am I going to do, film kind of came back into my mind, and I really wanted to try it. But my parents, being very supportive, were sort of like, if you want to do film, you should do it. If you are going to pursue it, just pursue it, And I don't think they thought that I was actually going to start getting jobs. I think they thought I was going to like make short films with my friends. But then like 2 months later, I went to my parents and was like, I just got a job on a film set. Can I do it? And they said yes. And then that's how I started working in the industry at 16. It was very hard. There were some sacrifices, especially with school. I missed prom. I almost missed my high school graduation, and I did miss my college graduation because I was working. But I wouldn't really trade it for anything. I'm so grateful for that.
It's just knowing what you want and going after it. I think that is such a blessing to have supportive parents that allowed you to be yourself. So you've been in the film industry now for 10 years, which is kind of crazy. when you think about it, it's a lot. But you did touch on that you met a producer who was a comedy producer, and you have kind of stuck you mentioned that you met a producer who was in the comedy space. And why do you feel like it's important, comedy is an important medium for storytelling?
I think that first of all, comedy is sort of like a spoonful of sugar in this world where, you can sort of get across really important information and really important messages, but sort of make it go down kind of sweeter for people. And sorry. So all I was saying was, so I think with comedy, people sort of kind of let their guards down a little bit because, they want to laugh and they want to be entertained. And I think sometimes when people let their guards down, they're more willing to sort of see themselves or not have shame in certain messages that the film can be putting across and stuff. I think with Pretty Problems, the film that I made that just came out, a lot of people were coming up to me and saying like, I really saw myself in Kat, who isn't the most positive character, but I think the fact that she was sort of funny and all this stuff, it made people sort of be like, I have those flaws as well. I have the same flaws as her. And I think it allows people to sort of like look inward without shame and without judgment and sort of say, oh, maybe I kind of do that too. Where with sadder films, I do really like drama. I really love watching drama, but I do think it gives messages in a slightly different way than comedy. And I just really like to laugh. So if I am going to be trying to say something very heartfelt, I would rather laugh while saying it.
That's true. That's very true. And I'm glad you touched on Pretty Problems, because without giving away too much, can you just set the scene for us about what Pretty Problems is about?
Yeah, so Pretty Problems is about this sort of middle class couple, Jack and Lindsay, who meet, the 1% of the 1%, and named Kat and Matt. And they sort of whisk them away on this wine vacation in Sonoma. And throughout this vacation, we call it, sort of them being sent away to Wonderland. And Lindsay is being kind of really enticed by this life and realizing how jealous she is of these people, where Jack is sort of remaining grounded and sort of seeing their flaws. And it's about how their relationship survives that tension.
I liked the premise of the story. I got to see a sneak peek of it. And such an important, the way it was told, the way it's being told, it's such an important story, because we do get seduced by, that life. And we're like, oh, if I had their money, I would do so much better in life. Mm-hmm. But people are people, even with money, and it's such an important story that you guys, you and the team have told. Please tell me, why was this project something that you wanted to be on? Because you worked on it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, getting a film, I actually heard this advice sort of recently, and I had sort of been living by it, but now I live by it a bit more intentionally. A friend of mine sort of said, every time you receive a project, just take a moment to think how hard it is to make a movie. Just really think about it from beginning to end. It is so hard. And then think, am I willing to put that much work into this? And she's like, and if it's yes, then you should make the movie. And so when I read Pretty Problems for the first time, I jumped for joy. I loved the script so much. It felt so conversational, so real. It was very funny, but very heartfelt. I found myself on sort of like an emotional journey, which I love with comedies. I like having moments where I kind of want to cry, or I want to cringe, or I want to feel really bad for these people, but I'm still kind of laughing at the same time. And so I love the fact that it had those elements, but most of all, I really liked what it was saying about relationships and how hard relationships can be, especially if you've been married for a really long time, and how the challenges of life sort of come into a marriage. It's not sort of you get married as happily ever after. Life keeps going and things are going to keep getting in your way. And so I really liked how Jack and Lindsay they don't have the perfect marriage, but they do really love each other. And I think that comes across in the film very well. And just most of all, I thought it was really funny. And so I knew that it was going to be good. It was a very rare situation where I read something and was like, there's no way this can be messed up. It's going to be good when it is finished. And I was so glad that other people agreed with me when it was finished.
Which it is really good. It really is. Please tell me how, yes, you are working behind the scenes, you're producing, but you also are now working at, I think you are part of editing as well and using new technology. How does that now play into your role from being a producer and editing and working on the film in that capacity?
So as a person, I'm super into technology, and I kind of always have been. And been, I have seen some producers that work and they don't really have a lot of interest in how sort of the technical side works, which is totally fine. It's one way of doing things. But I really liked kind of being a nerd with my crew and asking lots of questions and trying to learn everything. So when I was in college, I actually majored in cinematography and sort of camera development, as well as working in a post production house to make money while in college. So it gave me those experiences and those understandings so that when I became a producer, I know what equipment we need. I know the types of things that we need because that is what I majored in. And that is the knowledge that I have as well as for post production. So the one huge positive for the film was I designed the post-production workflow before we even started shooting the film because I have such a background in post. And it allowed us to do two things. It allowed us to watch the footage every day live, which isn't always an option because, the sound is recorded on one device and the video is recorded on another. So I designed a workflow that would allow us to watch the footage and edit the movie while we were going. And so by the end of shooting, we had 3 extra days to do any reshoots that we wanted. And we knew what reshoots we needed to do because we were watching the edited scenes and being like, this scene is not working. And being like, great, we'll just reshoot it. I mean, it doesn't matter. There's no consequences. Let's just reshoot this. And so that really helped because we did end up reshooting a couple of scenes, and I don't think the film would have been as good with the original scenes that we shot. I think it would have been fine, but it wouldn't have been as good. And then on the other end, post-production is where things can fall apart. It's where you can realize you can't use certain footage, or you realize, oh no, the recorder actually didn't record audio for like 7 takes from this scene and all this stuff. But because I was there, we knew on set if something didn't record or something didn't go through. And we didn't lose a single second of footage, which was very exciting. That doesn't always happen. As well as like being on the creative side and helping like design the actual film. I think sometimes it can be hard to like turn off one brain and turn one on and then turn that brain off and then turn the other side on. But I think that's also what makes a good producer because you're always going to be in charge of the technical and the creative at the same time.
That's very interesting. I've never been on a movie set, but I mean, the kind of like the 2 recordings, that's something you see on like behind the scenes, especially when you watch. So that is very interesting that you're part of a team that's kind of revolutionizing movies and how movies are being recorded.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of Pretty Problems and the award, how did it feel that you've recorded this, you've filmed this movie and it's something that you saw and you're like, I'm definitely going to be honored, and then winning an award for it?
Yeah, that was, I always describe it as like I went to bed one day and then I woke up to a life that I didn't recognize. I mean, I was working at a different studio actually during post-production for the film. So I was going to work somewhere else every day and then working on Pretty Problems at night every single day for months. And I was at work when I got the phone call that we got into South by Southwest at all. And I started screaming like in the office because I couldn't believe I couldn't believe that we had just gotten in at all. And we immediately had to have a meeting of like, okay, how are we even going to screen the movie? Because we haven't finished the movie. We're nowhere near done. Yeah. And so we were like, okay, we have like 3 weeks to finish the movie, sound design it, color it, like send it to South by. We had to call them and ask for an extension immediately. Like we got in and then the first thing we did was like, can we give you the movie later? Like we're not finished. And so it was like this mad dash. And we learn, and then South by is 2 months later. That's when you actually go to the festival. It's 2 months after they call you to tell you that you got in. But those 2 months went by so fast, because like the first month we were like editing every single day. The second month, we're trying to market the film and we're trying to get everything ready. So it felt like a blink of an eye, and we were like on the South by Southwest stage announcing our film and to this audience of 450 people. And so when South by finished, we were like, great, that was fun. Like, good job, team. Like, this is so great. And sort of the people, our agents and our managers were like, they haven't announced the awards yet. I mean, this not finished. You're not done. And we're like, no, we're done. Like, we're not going to win an award. This is South by Southwest. Of course, we're not going to win an award. And that morning, I was in a meeting, and my phone is just blowing up. I'm receiving like 100 texts in an hour. And I finally, the meeting ends, and I walk out and I look at my phone, and it just says, hey, you're not responding to any messages. Did you just see that you won the audience award for South by Southwest? And again, I started screaming. I couldn't believe it. And then that weekend, we won 2 more awards. We won the grand jury and the Bay Area Filmmaker Award at Sonoma. And then 2 months after that, we won the Audience Award at Maui. And it was just every single time we won an award, Kestrin, the director, Michael and Britt, the lead actors and fellow producers and writers of the film, we would kind of stand in a circle and just be like, what is happening right now? What's happening? This is crazy. And so none of this is lost on us. We're so amazed and grateful and excited. But yeah, it feels, you always want it to happen, but you never think it will. And then when it finally does, it's like an out-of-body experience. It's very crazy.
Well, congratulations. I mean, that is so amazing. It's one thing finishing what you started and finishing the movie, and you guys had to finish it quickly for the awards. But it's just one thing to actually be validated that this is a story that lands on people, and it's great. And how was it working closely with, not just the producing staff or the behind the scenes crew, but also with working closely with the actors and the actresses of this movie? And how did you choose them? I know, like, obviously there's a casting director, but you needed to feel like, okay, these people work well for the story.
Yeah. So when Michael wanted to make the film initially, the first conversation was like, do we want to cast A-list actors? Like, who should we cast? And Michael was at a birthday dinner for himself, and he was like looking around the table and was like, no, I want to cast like my acting people. I want to cast the people that my career has grown with. Like these are my people. And so we took the very risky road of casting from an acting studio. And we knew that these actors had an incredible amount of talent. It was more risky because sometimes distributors or theaters or audiences don't take interest in your film because they don't recognize the people in it. So we sort of were like, can this film stand on its own without any name propping it up? And can these actors knock it out of the park? And it was the same thing with Kestrin, the director. She didn't know these actors either because Michael made the final decision on the casting. And so her and I both were like, oh no, like they better be good. we don't know these people. And it was the first rehearsal that they were so funny. Even though when I met the actors for the first time, especially when I met Graham and Alex who play Matt and Carrie, when I met them for the first time, I was like, oh, this movie, this isn't going to be good. Like, because they were so nice and they're so down to earth. And they're like, hey, like, do you need me to get you anything? And I was like, you guys can't play sociopathic rich people. You can't do it. You're too nice. And turns out they were fine. They could play it perfectly well. It was like an on and off switch for them. And then also with Michael and Britt and Kestrin, I mean, they were one of the best teams I've ever worked with in terms of there was just no ego on the set. Everybody was sort of like, okay, best idea wins. Like, what is going to work? And the other fortunate side is that we lived on the film set, which can be bad, but it ended up being very good. Like, we had a lot of fun. We bonded a lot and we had a lot of time to talk. But us living together in this property made it so that at dinner every night when we had wrapped filming, we would just talk for hours about what we were going to shoot the next day and how the film was coming together and why we thought certain characters were doing certain things and all that stuff. And we ended up rewriting the end of the movie moments before shooting the end of the movie, because we were like, yeah, because in the original ending, as was written, nobody really made a decision. It sort of was like things kind of fell apart on their own. And Matt, who is one of the rich families, like he kind of makes a decision for the main character. And as we were talking about the film, we were sort of like, no, the main character, you know, Lindsay, she has to decide if she wants this life or she doesn't want this life. It can't be given to her or taken away. She has to decide. And so we rewrote the entire ending of the movie to make sure it was clear she was making a decision. I think that it worked so much better. And that wouldn't have happened if we didn't live together and talk to each other every day. And so that I think that it really helped the film.
I think it really did. I can't believe you guys were living together.
Oh, yeah. The entire crew as well. It was the entire cast, the entire crew, everyone. We all lived together.
It was a beautiful place to live in, to be honest.
Oh, it was awesome. We loved it. We called it Filmmaking Summer Camp. We all went there for 3 weeks and we just there was a hot tub. There were actually many hot tubs. There was a sauna. I mean, we were fine. we were completely fine.
What is your favorite moment about filming the movie, watching the movie, seeing the audience reaction about this?
Mm-hmm. So my favorite scene to film was the pool party scene, because we just threw a pool party. Kestrin, the director, her whole ethos is that, you know, if you're filming a party scene, you should just throw a party. Like, that's all you should do. And then the actors are just going to enjoy the party that you're throwing for them, and you're going to film that. And so the pool party, you know, even the crew was like putting on bathing suits and like jumping in the pool, and we were having so much fun. It was so much fun that a crew member came up to me and said, every movie I make should have a pool party scene. Like, that is going to be a new thing in my contract. And so that was very fun. But my favorite scene to watch is this like murder mystery scene where all of their relationships start to kind of unravel. And I really loved it because there's like these incredible costumes and there's so much improv in that scene that is really funny. And I think it was the scene that we had kind of the most fun, other than the pool party scene. It was the scene that we were having the most fun with, and the most, like, everybody was finally loosening up because we'd been filming for a while, but we weren't filming for so long that people were tired yet. It was like that perfect middle ground. And in terms of people watching the film, I mean, we've gotten to screen to so many sold out audiences, which is not anything I've ever experienced before. In Sonoma, we had sold out. I remember I arrived at the theater a little bit late, and there was a line just completely wrapped around the block. I mean, it was so many people, and I had to like fight the line to get into the theater. And they were like, no, you can't. Yeah, they're like, you can't cut in line. I went, I made the movie, like, move. And when I got to the front of the line, I said, I'm late. Like, why haven't they let people in yet? And they went, we did. It's sold out. These are the people that are left. And so then someone announced, like, anyone who's willing to stand through the entire movie, like, we'll let like 30 more people in. And people did. People went into the theater to stand and watch the film, and there was still people left outside. And that was like, we packed it to such capacity that we weren't even allowed in the theater anymore because it was like a fire hazard. Like, it was too many people in the theater. So we had to wait outside of the theater and just wait for the movie to end, which had happened to us like 4 or 5 times in our festival tour, which was really exciting. And then in Alabama, we sold out a 700-seat theater. And people were like yelling from the balcony, like, that's the best movie I've ever seen and stuff. And there was like so much energy in this theater. And yeah, it's overwhelming. It's very exciting. And then it's very overwhelming at the same time. I always, whenever we're about to go to a festival, I always text the whole group, like, meditate, drink water, do yoga, like, do something to stay grounded as we're like traveling and seeing people see this film. And so it's been very exciting.
And your passion comes through so much speaking about this movie. So, I mean, I'm excited to watch it.
Thank you.
Also, I just want to say thank you so much for, spending time with us on In Her Words and sacrificing your night a bit to talk about this incredible project where we're so excited to watch it. Any last words you have for our audience?
I would say my last words are within filmmaking. I think that whoever is watching this and like wants to be a producer or wants to be a filmmaker, I think that it's so important to ask people for favors and just sort of reach out to people, because you don't know what's going to happen and you don't know what they're going to say. And the worst thing that happens is that they just say no, that they can't help you or they can't give you something. With this film, we just asked someone for the location and they just gave it to us. And it was true for the store, it was true for the vineyard, and it was the same thing with our sound designer. Our sound designer is a multi-Oscar award-winning sound designer who sound designed Inception and Dunkirk and all these films. And he just sound designed our film because he believed in us and because we asked. And so I always tell people that if you have something to offer and someone asks, if you can, please say yes, because it could mean that they make a movie and they could get into South by Southwest and it could change their life. And if you want to make a movie, just ask people because they might say yes and you might be able to make your movie.
Thank you for that. I also always say, 50% of the answer. It's either yes or it's no. So that's always what I say. Thank you for sharing your time with us, and thank you for this incredible movie and telling your story and telling stories, which is so important.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, bye.
Bye.
iTunes. Our link will be in the bio.